Good morning. Welcome to our webinar, Why We Need PE in Recess and How You and your School Health Advisory Councils can help, particularly during this pandemic. I am Michelle Smith. I am the State Coordinator for Action for Healthy Kids. And we're excited to have some great presenters today. Just real quickly, want to share logistics. You should be able to use either your phone or your computer speakers, but everyone will be muted. You can submit questions through the Q&A box. There's also a chat function if you want to say hi or just share some thoughts there. That would be great. We will be recording the webinar and we will send out a link after in case you want to share the webinar with others, and we will also send a PDF of the slides so that you will have contact information for our presenters and the links to any of the resources that we will be sharing today. So without further ado, we will get started. Just a quick introduction of our presenters today. We have first up will be Shana Green. She is the Curriculum Implementation Manager with the Catch Global Foundation. We also have Rose Haggerty, who is the Executive Director for Texas Association for Health, not healthy, but Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. And then Dr. Debbie Ray, who is the Associate Dean of Health Sciences and Research and the Founding Director of the LiiNK project at Texas Christian University. So they will probably share additional relevant facts about themselves and the work they do during their presentations. So again, be sure if you have questions along the way to drop them into the question box, and we can answer some of them after our speakers, but also at the end. So to get started, I will turn it over to Shana.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm just so excited to be with you and to be with this great panel. My name is Shana Green, and before coming alongside and working with Catch, I was a PE teacher at a school level, and then I moved into the district level. And so we're really going to talk about the importance of physical activity and physical education today and how to promote that. And I'm going to kind of stay at that school-based level. So if you're a PE teacher, you're on a campus, this is going to be for you. And then for those of you that are not, we'll talk about ways that you can kind of support those on the campus and how we can really promote physical education, physical activity, because right now is the time to advocate more than ever. And we'll kind of touch on that as well. Next slide, please. So before we get started, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge what we've been going through these last few months and what we're going to continue to go through in the next couple of weeks and months as we figure out what our new normal is going to look like. Everyone, students, families, teachers, school staff have all been affected in a wide range of ways, mentally, physically, emotionally, as a result of the health and social crisis that we've been dealing with. And I've got to say that we should all acknowledge these variety of emotions and anxieties that we're all going through and that we may be dealing with. We need to emphasize recognizing those and allowing our school communities time, patience, grace, and kindness as we're moving forward. Key things going into the fall that we need to focus on, which align very well with the SHAPE guidelines for reopening, will be to address any issue regarding accessibility and inclusion of all students, making sure that we are being equitable among all of our students that are in the campus and virtually, using and reinforcing social emotional learning approaches, and using trauma-sensitive teaching. All of those things are going to be critical as we start in the fall. Next slide, please. So over the past couple of months, I have been fortunate to sit through a lot of seminars and conferences that have been held all over the world. And that's been one thing that's been nice about this new virtual setting. All of these conferences, all of these professionals, medical doctors, advocates, teachers, all of them are really talking about the importance of the whole child approach and the WISC model and how important that is. We're not going to have have enough time to really dive into the WISC model, but if it's something that you're not familiar with, now would be the time to really get to know this model, because this is going to be the key to reopening in a lot of schools. And this is kind of that buzzword. This is what we need to focus on. A big part of this is the health and safety of our children. And we know that the health and safety of our children are going to be very important right when we get back on campus, because we have to make sure that we have nurturing environments so that they can start to learn academics as again. Another important focus is going to be social and emotional needs of our kids as well as our faculty within the school. As a physical educator or a SHAC member or a health advocate, you already understand the importance of SEL and how to teach it on a regular basis. Now is a great time for us to expand that and start teaching our classroom teachers, our administrators, all about SEL and how to make sure that we're integrating it into the school day. We can offer ideas and suggestions on how to meet the needs of our students and how to meet the needs of our teachers. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Teachers are the worst at self-care, and I know this because I was a teacher for many years. We really need to focus on the self-care of our teachers and how to help them out. And so we're going to have the opportunity to do that really soon. When you're sitting through all the professional development, all the Zoom calls that you're going to be having with your campus, this is a great time for you to model these SEL, these mindful minutes, breathing techniques, all of these things for your faculty. So taking a moment to do that within those meetings will be a great thing to do. Lastly, we've all learned the importance of a healthy immune system. And so taking the time to really start teaching health nutrition, physical activity, hygiene, sleep practices, all those things that are going to make us healthier are going to be very, very important. And you as a health leader, physical education teacher, all of those things, you're going to be invaluable in this and really driving this effort. Next slide, please. So although there is limited data about COVID-19, because it's still new, scientists are learning more and more every day, and some information that has come out is strikingly clear. People of any age that have underlying health conditions, such as obesity, chronic lung disease, type 2 diabetes, heart conditions, are at an increased risk for severe illness from COVID-19. Additionally, this disease has laid bare the health disparities among minority groups. And all of these things make it very clear that health, physical activity, and PE must be included in our school day. Next slide. So how do we advocate? How do we promote? We know, everyone on this webinar, we know how important health and physical education are, but now we got to make sure that our administration knows that our parents and our community knows that as well. So when I was the wellness leader at my campus, we had a lot of turnover. We were constantly having new administration. And it was really important for me to get in there as fast as possible and meet with that principal and really advocate for our programs, for our health programs, for our wellness teams, all of those things. And these are a couple of things that I did that I think can help as you're moving forward. One of the things is make sure to schedule a conversation with your principal as soon as possible. If you have an administrator who really values health and wellness, speak to them as well. So if it's an assistant principal who really values health and wellness, get them on your team. The more voices you have on a campus, the easier it's going to be to change the environment and have an environment that really values health and wellness. Now, just know that your administration is super busy and they have been working all summer. So it might be important that you keep after it, keep seeking them and trying to make that meeting. Once you do make a meeting and you're ready to sit down with your administration, and if this is on a district level too, it's meeting with the right people to really talk about how are we going to bring health and wellness a focus for the entire district. So once you meet with your administration, whether that's on a campus level or a district level, be prepared. You can be prepared by knowing what is your ask going to be. Is it going to be that you really want to advocate for brain breaks? If we're going to be in a virtual setting, we want all teachers doing brain breaks throughout the day. Is it going to be recess? We want to make sure that recess is a big part of the school day, that everyone has access to recess throughout the day. Whatever it is that you're going to ask for, be prepared for that. And then have data that supports it, have student voices that will back you up and express how important that is, but be prepared. Collect that evidence before you speak. The next one is making the case or making the pitch. And that is when you're really going to ask for what you want, give some details about that, and maybe even a deadline of when we want to see that action happen. There's also something called an elevator speech. And an elevator speech is where you limit a kind of a speech or a program or a little promotion of your wellness policies within a 1 to 2 minute speech about the time that it would take to be on an elevator. And so I would say to really work on creating this elevator speech around health and wellness on your campus. And that might be just how beneficial it is for your students, how well it's worked in the past, and then the idea that you have moving forward and the team that you are going to put in place to get it done. So you get all that together, you make your case, you make your speech. Now you want to be the solution. So once you get to know what your principal envisions for their campus, be the solution to that vision that they have. So if you're a principal, and again, this could be at a district level, if our district is driving for academic success, then what we want to highlight within our pitch is the connection between physical activity and academic success. We want to offer to include physical activity sessions or brain breaks for teachers while they're teaching virtually. Maybe that's popping in on their classes and doing a little brain break. We want to focus on maybe doing a physical activity session at a STAR boot camp. So if we're back in session, we're back in the classroom, and we're preparing for like a math and science night. Well, if your wellness team can come in and do this fun obstacle course as part of that math and science night, that is a great way to be the solution to getting students working on academics to prepare their academics. Maybe their vision is more focused on building a strong community. So if your administration wants to build this strong community, then you could offer to host an exercise session for your parents and your students to come to together. You could reach out to health advocates into the community and have them come into the campus and help you with things in that way. You could host a virtual fun night or a field day. You could even host a virtual health fair where people in your community are coming and going live with you on some kind of social media platform and speaking about all of the health things that they have in the community for your campus. The next thing you want to do is you want to follow through. So you've made the ask, you've been the solution, we've seen this, we've got everything moving, you've got some momentum, now you want to follow it through. You want to finish out whatever it was that you guys started. You want to celebrate that. And then all of a sudden, your administration is going to be coming to you next time because they're going to say, hey, we have this event. We really want to include physical activity, because we know if physical activity is there, if your wellness team is there, then we're going to have more parents there. We're going to have more student engagement. And so that's kind of the way that we worked on advocating and promoting physical activity, wellness teams, and the importance of that on a campus level. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I mentioned a lot about data, right? When we're building the case, when we're really asking for attention to be paid to health and wellness, we need to have the data to support it. And so this is just some information from the CDC that you can get from the CDC website, and then also I'll talk about providing you with this information as well. So we know that students who are more fit or enjoy physical activity do better academically. They have higher grades, they do better on standardized tests, they have higher graduation rates, higher attendance. We also know that it lowers dropout rates and behavior problems. It also increases better cognitive skills such as concentration and memory. And the next slide is going to show us why. So if you'll, one more. Perfect. So this side is, you can see your brain after 20 minutes of sitting, and we see that there's not a lot of color there. There's not a lot of things firing. The other one is 20 minutes after walking. So this is brightly colored. There's things firing the brain. The brain has more oxygen. And so we really want to talk to our teachers about which brain is it that we want to teach. It's this one. It's the one that's firing, that's igniting, that's ready to learn. And so to get our students in that place when they're sitting in the classroom, take some physical activity, some brain breaks, getting them outside for a good little bit of recess. If it's sitting in a virtual setting, then it's getting them up and doing a movement just like this. So you know what? We're going to do an activity break. And I can't see you, but I'm going to trust that you're going to do this with me, okay? So all of us are going to spell our name. And if your name has a consonant in it, you're going to stand up. So get ready to stand up. You'll stand up. And if it is a vowel, then you're going to twist, okay? All right. When I say go, you're going to spell your name. Ready, go. Consonant, stand up. Vowels, you're twisting. Come on, panelists, I can see you. Everybody else better be doing it. All right, I'm almost done, and hey, that's the end of my name. Okay. So you can see after just a second of moving, you are automatically more alert and ready to listen. So this stuff does work. We want to make sure that we're advocating for it. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide just shows our education with nutrition. So lots of studies have shown that children who are eating breakfast, they do better academically, as well as those who have fruit or fruit juice during the day instead of sugar sweetened beverages. And so that's just another slide that shows that connection. Next slide, please. And this one shows absences. So students who scored higher on fitness also were absent less. So this, again, is a good thing for our administration to know when we're advocating for health and wellness. And again, these slides will all be made available to you. Okay, next slide. All right. So a wellness leader on a campus, when we were meeting in person, is someone that's leading and coordinating efforts. They're communicating and empowering the school for different health things. They're modeling and teaching concepts. But what does that look like during COVID? And so I'm going to hit each of these points and just give you some different ideas that you can do. And really, the sky's the limit. You know, we can do just as much in a virtual world as we can in classes. And as we start going back, whether that's a hybrid model or going back to in person, then we want to continue all of those efforts. Okay, so right now, this first one, leading and coordinating an effort to create and support healthy environments at school and at home. One thing we can do is use social media platforms and your campus website to talk about wellness. This has become very, very, so going on social media and maybe having some kind of campaign. Use themes. Themes are a lot of fun and they kind of keep track throughout the year. So a theme that you can do is Eat a Rainbow Week, where all kids are going to eat different colored fruits and vegetables during that week. Have them take pictures of it or record videos of it and then post it back to your website or use your hashtag. And we've seen this done at some schools in Dallas where their whole feed was just one child after another. Hi, I'm Shana Green, and today I'm eating a strawberry. And they would eat their strawberry on the red day. On the green day, they would do a green vegetable. And so all of a sudden, you're getting to see all of these great health and wellness things on your social media platforms. Another one could be start off on the right foot. And we could have a big walking challenge. So all of the teachers could be walking more, the students, and we're logging how much we're walking. Another one that would be really simple is a water challenge. And so as we've got our teachers on campus, we've got our students, everybody has to have their water bottle by the campus. So these are just ways that we can really build that community in and do something together that's really positive as we're kicking off a new school year. You could consider hosting a virtual field day or that health fair I talked about where other people can go live with you and talk about what resources they have. You could also, and I really suggest this, become a YouTube star. And what I mean by that is you don't have to be perfect, but your students want to see you on these screens. You know, and so getting on, and right here we have a teacher, one of our catch champions from Chicago. She would get on weekly and set some kind of challenge for her students. And just being able to see their, you know, PE teacher, their health teacher, their favorite teacher that they've missed so much can be very, very meaningful. So even though you may not feel perfect or prepared, I just want to encourage you to get on and become a YouTube star. Create videos of brain breaks, of different physical activity things. It could even just be a message, just a, hey guys, remember to move and stay active today. All right, the next one, we're going to communicate and empower. Oh, not the next slide. Sorry, Michelle. So on this one, we have a ton of professional development. Let's start now. Let's start with our teachers. So let's talk about health and wellness and the importance with the teachers. Let's take a mindful minute, have everybody breathe throughout those things. Create a Biggest Loser competition among your teachers, maybe a virtual 5K. All of these things are things you can initiate right away. The last bullet here, we're going to model and teach. So right now, health is at the forefront of a lot of our minds. Go the extra mile and create quick cross-curricular health lessons that teachers can plug and play. So maybe you record yourself teaching a 5-minute lesson all about screen time, and you're calculating how much screen time students have, and your math teacher can play that. So find ways really work with the classroom teachers so that they're getting their health messaging in along with their core competencies in a virtual world. Another thing you could do is maybe working with talking about germs and have your science teacher send that out. Make sure that you're jumping in on your teacher's virtual classes and doing brain breaks or just popping in to see your students and reminding them to be healthy during this time. Platforms are going to make this easier. And so if you're still kind of searching for some platforms, some of my favorite ones are Flipgrid, the Google Drive, all of that works really well. And Google is constantly coming out with new things. And then another one is the Bitmoji virtual classroom or virtual gym, which has been so much fun where you can actually create this gym that students can interact with. Okay, next one. And as I wrap up, I just want to let you know that advocating and promoting can be difficult if you haven't done it before. And so we are creating resources for you. And I'm so happy to hear Action for Healthy Kids will be doing something very similar. But if you're interested in either a slide presentation that you can show to your administration that's going to show that data, that's going to talk about the WISC model, a template letter to your admin that just says, hey, I'm here. These are the ideas I have. I really want to get this whole child group going, this wellness team moving in the right direction, and even an example video of how to connect your community virtually. So all of that's going to be available to you. We are working on it and it'll be ready by Monday. And so if you're interested in any of those advocacy resources, please reach out and we'll make sure to get those to you. Okay, that's my part. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shanna. That was great information. Now we're going to turn it over to Rose Haggerty. Rose?
Good morning, everyone. And thank you again, Michelle, for being a part of this. I get a chance to talk about what I really have a great passion for. Previously, I have been in the school system in the K-12 setting. I retired after 40 years, finishing up in Houston ISD. And there I oversaw the health and physical education programs for the district. And I was also part of, well, facilitator for the School Health Advisory Council. And so I have a very dear passion about the need for health and physical education, why that's so important. And then when we look at what's happening today and what we've been experiencing for the last few months, and we still don't know how much longer we'll be going through all of this. So Michelle, if you could advance to the next slide. It is so important that we take time to include health and physical education. Our students need that. And when I look at those two content areas, and I think about my past experience, we're the one content area that really looks at focusing on that social, emotional, physical, mental health aspect of the child. And so it is so critical right now because I look in terms of what our kids throughout the state and nation as well have experienced, and that's being home and being isolated, not being able to have that kind of physical activity. And so it is so critically important that we do tend to prioritize the health and well-being of our students at this point. So next slide. There is so much research out there, as Shana presented in presentation, that talks about the benefits of regular physical activity. And so it's so critical that that we do focus on physical education, physical activity in the school setting, because we do play that role in helping our students to improve their academic achievement. And knowing that the healthier our students are, the better prepared they are to actually learn. And we want to make sure that we give them that opportunity. Another really major piece is that the impact on any health issues. And so if our kids are physically active and healthy throughout the course of their lifespan, they're able to improve their quality of life. So we do want to give every child an opportunity to be successful. And that's where I think the role of that health physical educator is in the school setting, is that person to help provide opportunities for our students to actually learn. And so as we move into the next slide, we're talking about physical education and physical activity. And sometimes we have a tendency to get those confused, but it's important for us to know the difference. And it's also important for us to know how these two really work closely together. So when we look at physical education, we look at that as being that venue for our students to learn how to be physically active, to learn how to engage in activities in a safe manner, to learn how to identify those activities that would meet their needs and their interest level throughout a lifetime. When we look in terms of physical activity, we look at the programs. What kinds of things are students going to engage in, and how they actually will be able to implement those throughout life. So again, physical education is learning. This is where that special teacher or that specialist teaches them those different types of activities, and then the physical activity is actually implementing it and processing it. So it's really important for us to provide opportunities for our students to acquire the knowledge and skills, again, the confidence level that they can participate in physical activity for a lifetime. So as we move forward, one of the key things that I would like to address on, and Shannon touched on a little bit, is how important advocacy is. And so advocacy truly does matter. And I know with a lot of us, when we think about advocacy, we think about the legislature and having to go and stand and build a case there. But I want to bring it down closer to home in regard to what we experience. And what I like to think, advocacy starts from the ground up. And it starts from what you do in the school setting. So I want to walk through this, and hopefully you can walk through this with me and see where I'd like to address where advocacy actually starts. So the most important thing is that you as an advocate, it's important to be a part of the conversation. Find ways to creatively make yourself a part of that conversation. Shannon mentioned the elevator conversation. Those are really key. But as a teacher, it's making yourself aware of what the conversations are, let's say in your building or within your district, as it relates to health and physical education. And how do you make yourself a part of that conversation? So it's, again, taking a look at what it is we're offering through health and physical education, what it is our children need. How can I impress upon the decision maker, either at the campus level or at the district level, of why health and physical education is really critical and important to that child's educational process. You make a difference, and that's believing, number one, that you do make a difference. I think physical education, health and education are very critical to the educational process of the child. So how do we make sure that our decision makers really understand that? And then knowing too that you're a valuable resource. One of the things being in the school district that I noticed and I would always say is that sometimes at the building level and at the district level, we don't tap into our most available resources. Those being our health and physical education teachers. So for example, let's say that now a big thing is on social emotional learning. One of the things that health and physical education teachers have always done throughout the years is that they have always focused on social emotional learning within that physical education class or within that health class. So when we within that school district or in that school setting need to pull together a team to implement something that's or a program that's going to focus on social emotional learning, who better to have as a resource at that table to pull them in and make them a part of that. And so I do know that we have some school administrators that are with us today. And I want to encourage you to reach out to those health and physical education teachers. Make them a part of your resource team because they do have some that valuable resource and support. And again, addressing the needs of the whole child. Shannon mentioned the WIS model. I think we would be totally remiss if we provide an educational program that did not look at the whole child. And that also means that social, emotional, mental, physical aspect of development. And so we can't leave all of that out. And again, I encourage you with our specialists out there in health and physical education, you know what that means. You deal with that on a day-to-day basis and utilize your expertise to become a part of the solution within your school setting or within your district. And again, I can't stress enough is that you focus on social emotional learning all the time. Why not capitalize on that and become that better resource within your school setting or that better advocate? And then I always like to bring up the fact that if we're not at the table, you're usually on the menu. And the best way to prevent that is to make sure that you are a part of that conversation. And I always like to use the term of putting yourself in the know and making sure that you know exactly where your school is, what kind of programs they want to implement, and most important, what kinds of students that you are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And knowing that student from a much broader standpoint and going beyond the academic aspect of that student. But we've got to know that social, emotional, and that physical aspect of that child. That brings in that whole wellness part of looking at our children that we are serving. And we don't want to miss that out. So combining that academics along with all of the other aspects of a well-rounded child. So we talked about the why we become really good advocates. Now let's take a look at how you can do that. First of all, it's being prepared to take action when asked. Don't be afraid to step up when you have an administrator or someone on, let's say, your wellness team within a school setting, and you have an action that you want to take. If there is some way that you have the resources, you have the knowledge base to be able to do it, don't be afraid to do that. Step up and be willing to take action on that. The other things that I'd like to say to teachers when particularly I get the conversation all the time when I say becoming an advocate, and it's like, well, I don't want to go to the legislature. And I said, advocacy starts from the very beginning. So to me, and I did when my role as a district administrator, I did a lot of assessments. And so when I look at lesson plan to me is one of your first steps of advocacy. Making sure that you have developed a meaningful lesson plan, one that's going to be able to allow you to provide quality instructional programs, making sure that those programs are one that meets the needs of the students and that one that really advocates for a healthy, establishing a healthy lifestyle. And again, so these are things that you can do. The other things is many of us go beyond our instructional programs, and we do special programs throughout the school day, making sure that those programs are complementary to your instructional programs. And then another piece is looking at how do we communicate with our parents? How do we handle parent-teacher conferences? Those are opportune times for us to advocate for what we do in our programs, and then also to advocate for why those programs are so important. The other thing is communicating with your decision makers and your leaders, so that's your principals, your superintendents throughout that school system. Do you have staff meetings to where you have offered to provide information as it relates to health and well-being of your students? Do you provide let's say you've just finished your fitness test and you've calculated all your tests, you've compared them to the school level academic data. Do you take that and do you present it to your school staff so they are aware of what's happening in physical education, and so also that there's an awareness of the link between academic achievement and physical activity? That's real important, and those are things that can start at the school level. So there are so many different things that I would like to say that becomes a how-to when we look at advocacy, and it can start from the very bottom. And I like to also think, and I've always told teachers, from the time that you walk into that building to start your job, you are advocating for what you do. You are advocating for those students. Another really key thing is engage and inform your school health advisory councils. Those are really key individuals as it relates to making those decisions, looking at the wellness policy, how that's developed, making sure that what's in that wellness policy is really something that will support what you're doing in physical education or what your whole program should really be about. So that SHAC setting is just extremely important for that. The other piece is going on next. Tapered is an affiliate of SHAPE America. And SHAPE has a lot of wonderful resources out there to help support physical education from an instructional standpoint, to help support the advocacy piece for physical education, and also health as well. And so I wanted to make sure that you have this link to be able to share and take a look at that. This particular one deals with the re-entry into school for the K-12 setting. So these are all different considerations. Very worth a good look in making sure that you actually are able to implement a lot of things that our students need when we start back. We realize that things are going to be extremely different for us. School districts now are beginning to make decisions in regard to what this school year is going to look like, at least for the first part of the fall semester. But the most important thing is making sure that your voice as it relates to the need for physical education is really heard. One of the things I think we recognized during the spring semester, when everyone had to go home and we had to resort to the virtual learning, was that what was missing was the physical activity piece. And I applaud all of our folks that are in the HPE community who developed lessons that provided active active sessions for our students to engage in, because that's really what they needed. I was really impressed when I saw a lot of news stations highlight what physical education teachers were doing during that spring semester to help encourage physical activity. So those were, it's really key, and I think we recognize the importance of it, but we still need to continually talk the talk, walk the walk, show what's really happening and how important all of that is. The other piece that I put on here was the link to recommendations for the American Academy of Pediatrics. And one of the reasons I wanted to show that is because they really focused a lot on the mental health issue aspect, and they talk about the impact of isolation. And we know that our kids have really been isolated throughout this whole semester and leading into the first part of our fall semester. So that's really critical. The other piece, and moving on, is Tapered is here. We're here as an advocate. We've always been an advocate for health and physical educators of all types, being at pre-K all the way through the university level. And so we've been that longtime voice. And I like the little picture at the top because it shows, and what it demonstrates to me is that we're all here together. We're all here holding everyone up. So know that you have a voice. Make sure that you're able to voice that, and then step out there and be a part of the solution. Because I really believe that we as health and physical educators and friends of health and physical educators, we can truly make that difference. And we have to help to encourage our decision makers to understand that. Don't leave us out. Make us a part of that solution. And so I want to say thank you again to everyone, and just remind everyone that this whole situation that we're in we're not isolated. We're in this together, and we can get through it together. So thank you again, and let's be fit for the challenge.
Thanks, Rose. That was wonderful information. I hope everybody took good notes. We did have one question, which I think we're going to let y'all respond to with your ideas in the Q&A box, so that we don't cut Debbie short, because she has some great information that she wants to share. So I'm going to trade the screen over to Debbie now.
All right. I'm gonna, okay, so, well, I'm not getting to share now. Hang on, it may, here we go, got it now.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I know that we're really short on time, and in that way of looking at it, I'm gonna speed through quite a few of my first slides so I can get to the meat of what I think you want to hear from a school perspective. But I'm going to come at it from a recess and social emotional learning and the outdoors perspective. I am a true believer of physical education, physical activity from the word go. I truly believe in it, but Shana and Rose have covered that very well. I'm really going more from the recess perspective, because play is very important to the whole child development. Just so you know, the left-hand side of my screen shows the LiiNK project, which is what I'm involved in. I am the creator and director of it, and what it involves is 4 unstructured play breaks a day in the school. These are all recess breaks of 15 minutes each, plus a social emotional learning curriculum. It's a character curriculum that the teachers are working with their kids on for 15 minutes a day, every day. Every recess should be outdoors unless there's a hurricane, a thunderstorm with lightning involved, or it's extremely cold, which for us is under 13 degrees, or extremely hot, and that would be over 103. So for us, weather conditions are key. We want variety of weather because that builds immune system. and we want you outdoors. We've become very much an indoor society, which has created lots and lots of issues from a health perspective on who we are. I'm from TCU, which you can see on the screen as well. And what I'm going to show you today and describe are things that I'm already doing in schools and ways that we are talking about how to re-enter the school based on groups that are doing LiiNK right now, how we're navigating and negotiating. So you all know the state of the nation, the children and the adolescents. I'm going to roll through this, but it is on the slide presentation that you'll get in case you want to use any of the statistics as you go and talk to your administrators about what Rose and Shana have talked about. This is very important and is in most position statements that are out there, but it says recess plays a critical role in shaping positive social relationships, overall health, academic performance, and long-term health trajectories for children and youth. This is very much needed, not just for elementary school children, but all the way up pre-K through 12. And let me just say, if you have the pre-K 3s or the pre-K 5s or whoever it is, they all need this play even more than what I'm doing with elementary and middle schools. This is from my way of showing something that Dr. John Medina has talked about in his neurological development with brain rules. But it just shows you that with brain development, the way we are able to strengthen the neurological prefrontal cortex in order to learn, and let me just say, learn how to learn and learn in academics in the classroom or outdoors classrooms is through these 4 things. Children and students need to have that activity level, unstructured and structured. Physical education is the structured side, recess is the unstructured side. The short bouts of information. When you present information to children, to say that we're going to sit here for another 30 minutes because we need to give you this information, they're not listening. They need the break. They've got to get outside. And for you to just sit there and hold them hostage is not a good way. And let me just tell you, at the first of this school year, there are 2 things that these kids need more than anything else. Social, where they'll get their social and emotional bouts, and the outdoors to play, to be out there together. Why? Because they're not focused on learning right now. They have been held up in their placements for 4 or 5 months now. Some have never been out of their apartments or wherever they're living, their houses, wherever that is, because they're scared that they're going to get COVID-19. As a result, when they come back, we have got to focus on the social emotional health of these kids and the activity of these kids before we do anything else. Cognitive has to come second. Let me just say, unless they have those other pieces in place, cognitive will not happen. It will not happen. So administrators, please hear me today when I say, we have got to start out of the gate with a much different approach than how we would typically do it, because these kids are not ready for what we have to tell them in a classroom right now. They have got to be slowly brought back into that. It is not where they've been. From nature deficit disorder, if you have looked at Last Child in the Woods, or you've had Dr. Richard Louv on a video, or you've heard him speak, he talks about the field focused and target focused mindset. And when we're outside, which I've given you a perfect example of a picture right there, when you see green, outdoors, nature, it produces a relaxed feel. In our systems of nervous system and beyond, endocrine and immune, we have to have a parasympathetic response state more than a sympathetic response state. That's the fight or flight is the sympathetic response, stress response. We get that in a school building every day by being in there all day long and not going outside. We've got to be able to get outside to get that parasympathetic state going. It's important that we do that. The target and field is when we're outside, being able to see a wide lens and then focus on what's important. Here's the thing. I am hearing from kids right now, all ages, saying, I'm very worried about being on Zoom again. on every class that we take because I can't focus. I can't stay in that realm this whole time. Please remember what I'm telling you right now. If all we're doing is focusing on Zoom and not getting them outside to play in between, or doing activities like Shana and Rose have mentioned with structure to them, whatever that may be, if we don't take breaks for that, music, art, all of these things are involved in that. If they're not getting it, they're going to be stressed and they're going to be ADHD like. Doesn't mean they are, but they're going to take on those tendencies. And then D3, I don't know how many of you realize this, but D3 is the main component of when we get allergies, asthma, lung conditions, headaches, all kinds of things. It may be a D3 deficiency. The best way to get that is through the sun. And the best time to get it is between 10 and 2. And the best way to get it is without sunscreen. So let me just give you a couple of tidbits here. If you're going to do this, 15 to 20 minutes max at any given time outside is not damaging to you or your skin. But you only need it between the elbows and the wrist. It's like Beam Me Up Scotty. You put the sun on the forearm and bam, it just does all kinds of great things for the D3, for your immune system. It really builds it. For people who have been indoors a lot and have all of these chronic conditions, the best thing you can do is get the D3 test through a blood test, find out where your level is, and then supplement and start getting outside more. Teachers, administrators, kids need to be outside as much as they can, including have your classroom out there some if you can. And I know that concerns you because what you're thinking about right now is, I got to get them down hallways, I got to get them outside, they're going to be socially together, they're not going to be distancing, we're going to spread germs everywhere, teachers are going to go home sick, what are we going to do? I mean, woo, it's really reeling in us. So just know that I'm getting to that in just a second. But what I want you to see is from our results, you see Dr. Peter Gray's is when play is missing what we see, when play is available what we see. From our research, because we've done lots of it with we've been doing this now since 2014 with the schools. And what you see is adults have just as much fun playing as kids do. But kids don't have to be on top of each other to enjoy the outdoors, as you can see in the top right. But what you see is so much more happiness and joy, much more empathy. Oh my gosh, they become much more empathetic when they're able to learn from each other on what they are going to tolerate and what they won't. Their well-being, self-esteem, quality of life, relationships, these are all part of it. And I'm sorry I'm rushing, but I want to get to the other parts, and I know we're short on time. Here's a big one. As a result of being outside and hanging from tree limbs that are big enough to do that and not tear down the tree, and from climbing things, even on getting on slides going the wrong way, which is okay, coming down the slide the right way and going up the wrong way at the same time is okay, but give it time, pace it. Building little tree things, fortresses, just exploring, being up in trees, all of this helps strengthen writing skills. It helps with being able to hold a pencil or a pen in their hands and their dexterity. It helps with the relationship between what goes on paper and what's in their minds. It helps with experiences of what they get outside and now what they can write about and they enjoy writing about, instead of having only what you give them and them not really being able to relate to what you just gave them in terms of what they should be able to write about. The whole teacher, it's not just about the kid, it's about you as the teacher as well. And here's one question I would ask you that'll prove my point. When you teach in school and you realize at the end of the day you've only gone to the bathroom one time, do you think that's good for your system? And I'll let you ponder that. So how do we keep recess, physical education, and SEL primary focus as we move forward? AAP, Rose just mentioned it in her resources. This was before COVID. It's still prevalent today. It's still something we should be identifying as number one, and we should be using it. I'm part of a new group called the Global Alliance, Global Recess Reliance, and I'm giving information on a regular basis on what we're doing and how those things can happen. I've got resources at the end that have all these different pieces in place that you can go back to and look at. but always keep this front and center as recommendations for what we should be doing. There's a new position paper out through the United Nations Convention on Rights of the Child, which has always said it's the rights of the child to play and be active. And this is one more piece that they put out there that you can go and look at. And I have those resources as well for you, but it just goes through a list of things. And unstructured play is one of them. Being able to be in green spaces, being able to do physical activity, which Rose mentioned, and so forth. Let's get to these strategies. Reopening school. You will have this list on your slide, but I just want to go through them again with you briefly. The LiiNK schools are doing a family pod mindset, meaning when they come back, that unit in a classroom stays together. They don't let the kids, even in 3rd grade on, go to other classrooms. They just switch teachers. So if a teacher is going to teach math and another teacher is going to teach English language arts, instead of moving the kids, the teachers just flip-flop, and they still teach within the classroom that the kids are in. This keeps those kids together and keeps them from spreading with other kids so that they are in their natural environment within that family. Checking the body temperature when they come in to enter the school building that morning. Masks and shields for teachers, but not for kids, because they will be staying in their pods. Focus on social emotional learning first and the normalcy, the routines that you want to have put in place. And that may take the first 3 to 4 weeks to get that done. And then build into your cognitive pieces in more ways. Since we're staying in Dallas-Fort Worth, we're now home till September 28th online instead of right after Labor Day. Some of these routines are still going to have to happen when they come back to school, but hopefully you will have produced some of the cognitive pieces. Get them outside, even at home. Tell them to go outside and play or get some of this activity in while they're at home. Teach social skills online. Go ahead and introduce some. PositiveAction.net has some skills that you can download, that some lessons that you can do with the kids without actually purchasing the materials. It's not a lot, but at least it's some that you could do with these kids. And then when you're on the playground, separate them into several sections so each pod can be in their own area, but they can still integrate together and play. And then just make sure that you're returning to when you do recess, that you have some safety pieces in place. Also, lunch would be in the classroom with them instead of in a lunchroom. All right, here are the well-planned recesses. And with this, have disinfectant stations. Don't have them all in lines trying to go through disinfectant all at the end. Just let them go and get disinfected. Teach them how to do that so that when they're coming back in, they have gotten their hands disinfected before they come back in. Of course, no masks or shields outside for anybody. Even the teachers can be without a mask out there. They'll just social distance from the kids while they're playing. But inside, they can have a shield on with a mic, or they can have their mask on, whichever feels more comfortable, but go that route. Limit the number of children on equipment, but if you're in the pods, you're pretty much limited anyway, and you can play on that equipment the way you want to. Individual water bottles instead of water fountains, just don't use them anymore and just use the water bottles. And then wipe and spray down equipment between groups. And free play is the best because they can explore and do the things they want and be social distance more. If certain kids are vulnerable, they can be in their own spaces to do the way they want to, but still get their D3. I hope I met my time here. Here are the resources. And let me just tell you, I think this one right here, Sick Kids, is awesome. Awesome. Please go to that resource. It tells you so many things that are great. We've got this one on the Alliance, Global Alliance recess page, and that one's down here as well. The SHAPE one's on here. The one that Rose talked about is up here. And then there's a Canada one for rolling out Canada. Australia is following the same guidelines that I have presented for what our LiiNK groups are doing. They are already open, have been open, and I will tell you that there's a group in San Antonio called Will Smith Zoo School, and they've been open since May and they had one COVID teacher, one COVID scare of a teacher right after they opened, and she went home, quarantined. No one else got COVID. Everybody's been open since. If a child is sick, they don't come in the building, they go back home because their temperature was given when they come in, and they just go home. They don't come to school, and they've had no cases. They've been open all summer. So that's a K-12 school. So just to tell you, they've been going outside every day. They've been playing with animals. They've been doing all kinds of stuff. But those are just some reports that I have right now that might help you. I will stop sharing. Thanks for your time. I hope that this is good information for you.
Debbie, you can talk fast, and you did share a lot of really great information.
And I'm sorry, but I knew we were out of time.
Sorry, you're awesome. I needed another half hour, really.
Well,
that everybody could have plenty of time, and we had time for question and answer. So I'm disappointed we don't have a lot of extra time. Let's see. I have to get this up real quickly. Just so you know, we do have another webinar about physical education and recess. We have asked some of our schools who are working on reopening to share how they're reopening and how they're handling recess and PE. So that will be next week, same date, Thursday at 11:30. We're also going to have a School Health Advisory Council SHACs 101 session in September, and we have scheduled 2 vaping sessions since this is something a lot of parents are really concerned about in the fall, and something that your School Health Advisory Council should also be working on. If you're interested in some additional information, we developed a 1-page SHAC guide on what your SHAC could be doing this fall, what they should be looking at now over the summer. We're working on additional resource documents that we hope to have ready in the next week or so. And then this will be included. Our Texas team page has some helpful resources for SHACs, as well as we have done webinars for about the past 5 or 6 years for school health advisory councils, as well as around coordinated school health. And those are all on YouTube. You'll find SEL, recess, engaging parents, a lot of different webinars that you can watch or share. And then we've also included the link to get that 1-page document. So, and then Action for Healthy Kids has a whole page with COVID-19 resources and links to other partners that have resources that you can use if you're working with your children at home, or if you're looking for specific resources around different topics. So you can check that out, and there's a direct link to those resources there. Shana, Debbie, and Rose, thank you so much for sharing. I'm sorry we didn't have more time, but great information, great strategies, and I feel like you guys should be able to go to any of these resources and start pulling together ways to advocate and make sure kids are getting physical education, physical activity, health as they go back to school, or even if they're remote. And again, like hopefully next week, some of the schools, districts that will be sharing information can talk about some of how they're dealing with PE and recess remotely, as well as other strategies. So thank you for joining us. We'll do a follow-up email next week. And I hope you stay safe and healthy. And I hope that we can all go back to school and some sense of normalcy in the near future. So, and I didn't introduce Alice Kirk, our state chair for Action for Healthy Kids, joined us in case we had an overwhelming number of questions, and which we did not. So we appreciate you all, and we'll look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, ladies.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was great. Debbie, I loved all the information you gave. Thank you so much. And